Let's actually use this calculate balance function where it's relevant, right at the beginning of the create transaction function, since we'll want to recalculate the balance before every transaction this wallet creates. Now, we haven't tested this function yet, but it's quite extensive, so it would be worthwhile to go through the function and make sure any typos aren't present. For example, calculate balance, well, the name shouldn't be calculate balance, this should be calculate balance. Likewise, we want to push each transaction object to the array of transactions. Also, look through and make sure transactions are singular, or rather pluralized when they need to be, and transaction is singular when it needs to be. For example, in this case, we want to look at the transaction input address and not the transaction's input address. And likewise, going down, make sure the transaction input timestamp is checked, not transactions, since the transactions array doesn't have an input object. All right, great. Now we're ready to recalculate the balance before every transaction this wallet creates. So up in create transaction, we'll calculate the balance and set it to this dot balance by setting this dot balance equal to this dot calculate balance. Notice though that the calculate balance function is missing a very important parameter, which is a blockchain to calculate the balance upon. However, we don't have a blockchain object in the wallet class, nor do we have one in this function, but we can make one available by requiring a blockchain parameter, and let's make it the third parameter. This allows us to pass in the blockchain variable into the calculate balance function. Now, this change in the signature of create transaction means that wherever we're using .create transaction, we need to pass in a blockchain instance. So let's search for .create transaction, and as we do so, we find one in the app/index.js file. So we need to update this instance, and luckily in this file we already have a blockchain instance available, so we can pass in BC as the third parameter to wallet.createTransaction in the post-transact method. We also have a couple references in index.test.js of the wallet directory. Now this one, we don't have a blockchain available, but we can make one by first requiring the blockchain directory and using the main index.js file of the blockchain directory, which is one above this in the blockchain folder. And then we can make a BC variable for the entire wallet test that is a new instance of the blockchain class. This allows us to pass in the BC variable to the calls of BC, or rather the calls of create transaction in the overall before each block, and then the before each block in the nested doing the same transaction scenario. Furthermore, we have some additional calls in transaction pool.test.js, so let's open those. Like our wallet test, we don't have a blockchain instance, but we can make one by again requiring the blockchain class, which is located one directory above this testing file. Let's make a BC instance, just like our other test. We'll make the BC instance set to a new blockchain, and then we can pass in the BC as the third parameter to create transaction. And likewise, there's one more reference at the bottom of the file, which creates a transaction for mixing valid and corrupt transactions. So let's pass in the BC instance as well. Perfect. That wraps up updating the calls to create transaction with the new blockchain parameter requirement. Let's rerun our tests to make sure everything is working, since we did quite a bit of refactoring. Go ahead and open up the command line, and then we'll execute the testing script with npm run test. As it goes along, it runs each test. Hopefully things are passing just as before, and if all goes well, we should get 100% green with no failure. The app works just as before. Next, we'll add specific tests around this balance calculation functionality. And then we'll also explore making a couple transactions between different users of the app, and then mining a block of these transactions. We'll then check if the balance for wallets works as we intend them to. With this step completed, the blockchain and cryptocurrency project has essentially completed its final phase. There are additional areas to explore to extend the project, but those ideas will be shared later. Alright, let's focus on the task at hand, which is to test the calculate balance function that we added to the wallet class.